The clock on the gym wall showed 10:30 p.m. when Ronda Rousey finally stopped hitting the heavy bag. Sweat dripped down her face as she unwrapped the tape from her hands. The gym was almost empty now. Only a few fighters were still training in the corner, their voices echoing in the large space. Ronda wiped her face with a towel and looked around the gym that had become her second home. The smell of sweat and rubber mats filled the air. This was where she felt most comfortable. This was where she was just Ronda, not the famous fighter that everyone wanted to talk to or take pictures with. She had been training hard for the past 3 hours. Her coach had left an hour ago, but Ronda stayed to work on her ground game. Tomorrow she had interviews to do. Next week she had photo shoots. But tonight she just wanted to train and forget about everything else. Ronda walked to her gym bag and pulled out a clean shirt. She changed out of her sweaty training gear and put on a simple gray hoodie and jeans. She pulled her long blonde hair back into a messy ponytail and put on a baseball cap. In these clothes, she looked like any other person leaving the gym after a workout. Her phone buzzed with text messages. Her manager wanted to talk about next week's schedule. Her mom wanted to know if she was eating enough. Her friends wanted to make plans for the weekend. Ronda put the phone back in her bag without answering. She would deal with all of that tomorrow. The gym was in Venice Beach, a part of Los Angeles known for its artists and athletes. Ronda had moved here 2 years ago when her fighting career started to take off. She loved the area because people here were used to seeing fighters and athletes. Most of the time she could walk around without being bothered. Her car was parked in the back lot behind the gym. It was a simple Honda Civic, nothing fancy. Ronda had bought it used when she first moved to California. Her friends always told her she should get a better car now that she was making more money. But Ronda liked her old Honda. It was reliable and it got her where she needed to go. She threw her gym bag in the back seat next to her championship belt. The belt was in a black bag hidden from view. Ronda rarely took it out except for official events. She had worked so hard to win that belt. But sometimes she got tired of people only seeing her as a fighter. Tonight she just wanted to be a normal person going home after the gym. Ronda started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. The streets were quiet for a Tuesday night. She drove through the main part of Venice Beach, past the restaurants and bars that were still open. A few people walked on the sidewalks, but most of the area was peaceful. As she drove, Ronda thought about her training session. She had been working on a new submission hold that her coach wanted her to try. It felt good in practice, but she wondered how it would work in a real fight. Fighting was like solving a puzzle. Every opponent was different, and she had to figure out the best way to win. The drive from the gym to her apartment usually took about 15 minutes. Ronda lived in a nice area not far from the beach. She had chosen the apartment because it was quiet and private. Her neighbors were mostly older people who kept to themselves. They knew she was a fighter, but they treated her like any other neighbor. Ronda stopped at a red light and looked at herself in the mirror. She looked tired. The hard training was starting to show on her face. But she also looked strong. Her shoulders were broad from years of judo training. Her hands were rough from hitting heavy bags and grappling with training partners. Sometimes Ronda missed her old life before she became famous. She missed being able to go to the store without people staring at her. She missed having normal conversations that were not about fighting. But she also knew how lucky she was. She was living her dream of being a professional fighter. The light turned green and Ronda continued driving home. She passed through a few different neighborhoods. Some areas were busy with young people going to clubs and restaurants. Other areas were quiet with families sleeping in their houses. As she got closer to her apartment, the neighborhoods became nicer. The houses were bigger and the cars parked on the streets were more expensive. Ronda sometimes felt out of place in this area. She had grown up without much money and even now she lived simply. But her manager had told her it was important to live in a safe area. Ronda turned onto the street that led to her apartment complex. She was thinking about what she would eat when she got home. She had not eaten much today because she was nervous about tomorrow's interviews. She always got nervous when she had to talk to reporters. Fighting was easy for her, but talking to the media was still hard. Her phone rang and she saw it was her coach calling. She decided not to answer. He probably wanted to talk about tomorrow's training session. Ronda loved her coach, but sometimes she needed space to think. She would call him back in the morning. The street was dark and quiet. Most of the houses had their lights turned off. Ronda could see her apartment building up ahead. She was looking forward to taking a hot shower and getting some sleep. Tomorrow would be a long day with interviews and meetings. As she drove down the familiar street, Rhonda felt relaxed for the first time all day. This was her favorite time of the night. The city was quiet, and she could finally stop thinking about fighting and fame and everything that came with her career. For these few minutes in the car, she could just be herself. She had no idea that in just a few minutes her peaceful night would be completely changed by someone who had no idea who she really was. Officer Marcus Henderson sat in his police car on the side of the road, watching cars drive by. It was almost 11 p.m. and his shift would end in 2 hours. He had been a police officer for only 6 months, and he was still trying to prove himself to the other cops at his station. Marcus was 24 years old and had dreamed of being a police officer since he was a kid. He thought it would make him feel important and powerful. But so far, most of his job involved writing parking tickets and responding to noise complaints. He wanted to do something that would get him noticed by his supervisor. He watched as cars drove past him on the quiet street. Most of them were expensive cars with well-dressed people driving home from nice restaurants or business meetings. This was one of the wealthy areas of the city, and Marcus always felt a little jealous when he worked here. Then he saw Rhonda's old Honda Civic driving down the street. The car had tinted windows and looked out of place among the luxury cars he usually saw in this neighborhood. Marcus immediately became suspicious. In his mind, someone driving an old car like that in this area was probably up to no good. Marcus had grown up in a poor part of the city, and he had his own ideas about what kind of people belonged in wealthy neighborhoods. He often made quick judgments about people based on what they looked like or what kind of car they drove. His training officers had told him to be careful about making assumptions, but Marcus thought he was good at spotting trouble. He watched as the Honda Civic drove slowly down the street. The driver seemed to be looking around, which made Marcus even more suspicious. He decided that this person was probably checking out houses to rob later, or maybe looking for cars to steal. Marcus started his police car and began following the Honda. Rhonda had no idea she was being followed. She was driving slowly because she was tired and wanted to be careful. She was also enjoying the quiet ride home and was not in a hurry. She noticed the police car behind her but did not think much of it. Police cars were common in this area because it was a safe neighborhood with regular patrols. Marcus followed Rhonda for about 2 blocks, becoming more convinced that she was acting suspicious. When she slowed down to turn into her apartment complex, Marcus decided to pull her over. He turned on his flashing lights and hit the siren once to get her attention. Rhonda saw the police lights in her mirror and felt confused. She had not been speeding or driving badly. She could not think of any reason why a police officer would want to stop her, but she knew better than to ignore a police car. So she pulled over to the side of the road and stopped her car. Marcus felt excited as he got out of his police car. This was his chance to make a real arrest and show his supervisors that he was a good cop. He walked up to Rhonda's car with confidence, already planning how he would search her car and find whatever illegal things he was sure she was hiding. Rhonda rolled down her window and waited for the officer to approach. She kept her hands on the steering wheel where he could see them, just like her father had taught her when she first started driving. She had never been pulled over before, but she knew it was important to stay calm and follow the officer's instructions. Marcus reached Rhonda's window and looked down at her. He saw a young woman in a hoodie and baseball cap who looked tired and sweaty. His suspicious feelings grew stronger. In his mind, she looked exactly like someone who did not belong in this nice neighborhood. "License and registration," Marcus said in a harsh voice, without explaining why he had stopped her. Rhonda was surprised by his unfriendly tone, but she reached slowly for her purse to get her driver's license. She also opened the glove compartment to get her car registration papers. She moved carefully and kept her movements visible so the officer would not think she was reaching for a weapon. "Here you go, officer," Rhonda said politely as she handed him the documents. "Can you tell me why you stopped me? I do not think I was doing anything wrong." Marcus looked at her license and was disappointed to see that it was real and that her address matched the area where he had stopped her. But he was not ready to give up on his suspicions. He decided that maybe she was using someone else's address or had fake identification. "What are you doing driving around here so late at night?" Marcus asked, ignoring her question about why he had stopped her. Rhonda was starting to feel uncomfortable with the officer's attitude, but she tried to stay polite. "I was just coming home from the gym, officer." I live right down the street. Marcus looked at her more closely. She was wearing workout clothes and did look like she had been exercising. But he was still suspicious about why someone like her would be in this neighborhood. He had made up his mind that she was trouble and he was not going to change it easily. What gym? Marcus asked as if he was testing her story. Venice Beach Athletic Club, Rhonda answered honestly. I train there most nights. Marcus had never heard of that gym, which made him even more suspicious. He was convinced that Rhonda was lying to him. In his mind, she was probably a drug dealer or a thief who was making up stories about going to the gym. Step out of the car, Marcus ordered. Rhonda felt a chill of fear. She had done nothing wrong, and she could not understand why the officer was treating her like a criminal. But she knew that arguing with a police officer could make things worse, so she slowly got out of her car. Marcus looked at Rhonda as she stood next to her car. She was taller than he had expected, and he could see that she was in good physical shape. But instead of making him less suspicious, this made him think she might be dangerous. He decided he needed to show her who was in charge. Put your hands on the car, Marcus commanded. Rhonda felt angry, but tried to stay calm. She had been taught to respect police officers, but this officer was treating her unfairly. She put her hands on her car and tried to think of what she should do. She knew she had rights, but she also knew that some police officers did not like it when people stood up for themselves. Marcus felt powerful as he watched Rhonda follow his orders. He was enjoying the feeling of being in control. He had no real reason to search her or her car, but he was hoping he could find something that would justify his actions. He was already thinking about how he would tell the story to his fellow officers. Marcus walked around Rhonda's car, looking through the windows with his flashlight. He was searching for any excuse to make this traffic stop into something bigger. His heart was beating fast with excitement. This was the kind of police work he had imagined when he decided to become a cop. Rhonda stood with her hands on the car, feeling frustrated and confused. The cool night air made her shiver slightly, but she tried to stay calm. She watched the officer's reflection in her car window as he moved around the vehicle with his flashlight beam dancing across the seats. So you live around here? Marcus asked in a tone that suggested he did not believe her. Yes, sir, just 2 blocks away, Rhonda replied, keeping her voice steady and respectful. Marcus stopped walking and stared at her. Really? What do you do for work that lets you afford to live in this neighborhood? Rhonda hesitated for a moment. She was used to people recognizing her, but this officer clearly had no idea who she was. She decided to give a simple answer. I am an athlete. Marcus laughed, but it was not a friendly laugh. An athlete? What sport? Bowling? He thought he was being funny, and his voice was full of sarcasm. I am a fighter, Rhonda said quietly. This made Marcus laugh even harder. A fighter? Like boxing? You do not look tough enough to fight anyone. He looked at her small frame under the loose hoodie and shook his head. What do you really do for work? And do not lie to me. Rhonda felt her anger starting to build, but she forced herself to stay calm. I am telling you the truth, officer. I am a professional fighter. Marcus was getting annoyed that she was sticking to her story. In his mind, she was obviously lying about everything. He decided to push harder to get her to admit what she was really doing in the neighborhood. Look, I know you are lying, Marcus said, stepping closer to her. No one who lives in this area drives a beat-up car like this, and women do not fight professionally. So why do not you tell me what you are really doing here? Rhonda turned her head to look at the officer. Sir, I am telling you the truth. I live here, I was coming home from training, and I have done nothing wrong. Why did you pull me over? Marcus did not like her tone. He thought she was getting too comfortable and needed to remember who was in charge. I will ask the questions here. You just answer them. The officer walked to the back of Rhonda's car and shined his flashlight through the rear window. He could see her gym bag on the back seat, but he could not see what was inside it. The black bag next to it caught his attention. What is in that black bag? Marcus demanded. Rhonda looked back and saw him pointing at the bag that contained her championship belt. It is just some of my fighting gear. Fighting gear? Marcus said with another sarcastic laugh. What kind of fighting gear? Rhonda did not want to explain about her championship belt to someone who was clearly not going to believe her anyway. Just training equipment. Marcus decided he wanted to search her car. He was sure he would find drugs or stolen goods or something else that would prove his suspicions were right. But he knew he needed a good reason to search without her permission. Have you been drinking tonight? Marcus asked suddenly. No, sir, I do not drink alcohol, Rhonda answered truthfully. Any drugs in the car? No, sir. Mind if I take a look inside your vehicle? Rhonda knew she had the right to say no, but she also knew that some police officers did not like it when people refused to cooperate. She was tired and just wanted to go home. Do you have a warrant? Marcus felt angry that she was questioning his authority. I do not need a warrant if you are acting suspicious. And driving around this neighborhood at night in a car like this is suspicious. I told you I live here, Rhonda said, trying to keep her voice calm. Prove it, Marcus challenged her. Rhonda gestured toward her license, which Marcus still had in his hand. My address is on my driver's license. Marcus looked at the license again. It did show an address in the area, but he was not ready to give up. This could be fake. Or maybe you are using someone else's address. Rhonda could not believe what she was hearing. Why would I do that? Maybe you are dealing drugs and using a fake address. Or maybe you are stealing mail. There are lots of reasons someone like you would have a fake ID. The phrase someone like you made Rhonda feel sick to her stomach. She was starting to understand that this officer had decided she was guilty of something before he even talked to her. Officer, I have answered all your questions honestly. I have done nothing wrong. Can I please just go home? Marcus did not like being asked to end the traffic stop. He was enjoying having power over someone and he was not ready to let her go. He also still hoped he might find something that would make him look good to his supervisors. Not until I am satisfied that you are not breaking any laws, Marcus said. What laws do you think I am breaking? Rhonda asked. I will figure that out, Marcus replied coldly. Rhonda realized that this police officer was not interested in the truth. He had already decided she was guilty of something, and he was going to keep bothering her until he found an excuse to arrest her. She started to worry about how far he might be willing to go. Marcus walked back to the front of the car and stood close to Rhonda. You know, if you just cooperate with me and tell me the truth about what you are really doing here, this will go a lot easier for you. I have been cooperating, and I have told you the truth, Rhonda said. No, you have been lying to me since I stopped you, and I do not like liars. Marcus was starting to enjoy the psychological game he was playing. He liked watching Rhonda get more uncomfortable. In his mind, he was a smart cop who was about to catch a criminal. He had no idea that he was harassing one of the most famous athletes in the world. Marcus was feeling more confident now. He had been questioning Rhonda for almost 10 minutes, and in his mind, her calm answers were just proof that she was a good liar. He decided it was time to get more aggressive and see if he could make her crack under pressure. Turn around and put your hands behind your back, Marcus ordered. Rhonda felt her heart start beating faster. Am I under arrest? What am I being charged with? Just do what I tell you, Marcus snapped. I'm trying to figure out if you have any weapons on you. Rhonda knew this was wrong. The officer had no reason to search her, and she had done nothing to make him think she had weapons. But she also knew that fighting with a police officer could lead to serious trouble. She slowly turned around and put her hands behind her back. Marcus pulled out his handcuffs and put them on Rhonda's wrists. They were tight and uncomfortable. There, that is better. Now maybe you will start telling me the truth. Officer, this is not right, Rhonda said, trying to keep her voice steady. You have no reason to handcuff me. I have not committed any crime. I decide what is right and wrong here, Marcus said. You are in my world now. Marcus walked Rhonda to the back of her car and made her lean against it. The metal was cold against her chest and the handcuffs were cutting into her wrists. She had never been treated like this before and she felt both angry and scared. Now let's try this again, Marcus said. What are you really doing in this neighborhood? I told you I live here and I was coming home from the gym, Rhonda repeated. Marcus shook his head like he was disappointed in a child. You know, I have been doing this job for a while now, and I can always tell when someone is lying to me. You have been lying since the moment I pulled you over. Rhonda wanted to point out that he had only been a police officer for 6 months, but she knew that would just make him angrier. Instead, she tried a different approach. Officer, what is your name? She asked politely. Officer Henderson. And you do not need to worry about my name. You need to worry about yourself. Officer Henderson, I understand you are just doing your job, but I really have not done anything wrong. Could you please just check my story? You can call the gym if you want, Marcus laughed. Oh, I am sure you have friends there who would lie for you. That does not prove anything. Rhonda was starting to realize that nothing she said was going to change this officer's mind. He had decided she was guilty and he was going to treat her like a criminal no matter what. Marcus walked around to the driver's side of Rhonda's car and started looking through the windows again. I am going to search this car, and when I find whatever you are hiding, you are going to be in a lot of trouble. You need my permission or a warrant to search my car, Rhonda said. Marcus turned and stared at her with anger in his eyes. Are you a lawyer now? You think you know the law better than a police officer? I just know my rights, Rhonda replied. Your rights? Marcus walked back over to where Rhonda was standing. Let me tell you something about your rights. You have the right to do what I tell you to do. That is your only right now. Marcus was starting to enjoy the power he had over Rhonda. He liked seeing her handcuffed and helpless. It made him feel important and strong. In his mind, he was teaching a lesson to someone who thought she was better than him. You know what your problem is? Marcus continued. You think you are tough. You think you can come into a nice neighborhood like you belong here. But I can see right through you. Rhonda bit her tongue to keep from responding. She could feel her fighter instincts wanting to take over, but she knew that would only make things worse. Marcus noticed that Rhonda was staying quiet, and he thought it meant his tactics were working. That is better. Maybe you are finally learning to show some respect. A car drove by and Marcus watched it pass. The driver was an older white man in an expensive car, and Marcus did not even think about stopping him. In his mind, that was the kind of person who belonged in this neighborhood, you see that? Marcus said to Rhonda. That is what someone who belongs here looks like. Not someone in old gym clothes driving a beat-up car. Rhonda felt sick listening to the officer's words. She was starting to understand that this was not just about her acting suspicious. This was about the officer's ideas about what kind of people belonged in certain places. Officer Henderson, Rhonda said carefully, I think you are making assumptions about me based on how I look and what kind of car I drive. Marcus turned back to her with an angry expression. Do not try to make this about race or class or any of that nonsense. This is about you acting suspicious and lying to a police officer. I have not lied about anything, Rhonda said. Everything you have said has been a lie, Marcus shouted. You do not live here, you are not an athlete, and you are definitely not a fighter. Women do not fight, they get fought for. The sexist comment made Rhonda's anger flare up, but she forced herself to stay calm. Women do fight professionally, officer. It is a real sport, Marcus laughed mockingly. Right, and I suppose you are some kind of champion? Rhonda looked at him for a long moment. If she told him the truth about who she was, would he believe her? Or would he just think she was making up an even bigger lie? I compete at a high level, she said carefully. Sure you do, Marcus said with sarcasm dripping from his voice. And I am the heavyweight champion of the world. Marcus walked closer to Rhonda again. The handcuffs were making her shoulders ache, and she was getting tired of standing in the same position. But Marcus was not concerned about her comfort. He was enjoying watching her suffer. Marcus was feeling more powerful with each passing minute. He had a young woman in handcuffs who seemed to be listening to everything he said. In his mind, this was exactly how police work should be. He was in complete control, and he was teaching someone a lesson about respecting authority. He walked around Rhonda slowly, like a predator circling its prey. You know, this does not have to be so difficult, he said in a voice that was trying to sound friendly but came across as threatening. Rhonda kept her eyes straight ahead, not wanting to give the officer any reason to escalate the situation further. The handcuffs were cutting into her wrists and her shoulders were starting to cramp from being in the same position for so long. I mean, we could work something out here, Marcus continued. You seem like a nice girl underneath all this attitude. Maybe we can find a way to make this whole thing go away. Something in his tone made Rhonda feel uncomfortable in a new way. She turned her head slightly to look at him. What do you mean? Marcus smiled, but it was not a nice smile. Well, I could write you a lot of tickets right now. I could say you were resisting arrest. I could have your car towed, or... He paused for effect. We could handle this quietly, just between us. Rhonda felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard stories about police officers who abused their power in different ways, but she had never experienced it herself. I do not understand what you are suggesting, officer. Oh, I think you do, Marcus said, stepping closer to her. You are a smart girl. I am sure you can figure out what I mean. Marcus was enjoying the psychological game he was playing. He liked watching Rhonda become more uncomfortable. In his twisted mind, he thought he was being clever and subtle, I could make this all disappear, Marcus continued. No tickets, no arrest, no problems. You just have to be nice to me. Rhonda felt sick to her stomach. Officer Henderson, I think you need to be very careful about what you are saying. Marcus laughed. Are you threatening me now? That is funny. You are the one in handcuffs, remember? Rhonda turned to face him fully, despite the awkward position the handcuffs put her in. I am not threatening you. I am reminding you that you are a police officer, and you took an oath to protect and serve people. I am protecting and serving, Marcus said with a smirk. I am protecting this neighborhood from people who do not belong here, and I am serving justice. This is not justice, Rhonda said firmly. Marcus's expression changed from playful to angry in an instant. You do not get to tell me what justice is. I wear the badge. I carry the gun. I decide what happens here. He walked even closer to Rhonda, invading her personal space. And right now I am deciding that you need to learn some manners. You need to learn how to talk to a police officer with respect. Rhonda could smell coffee on his breath and see the anger in his eyes. She realized that this situation was becoming more dangerous than she had initially thought. This officer was not just power-hungry, he was unstable. Officer, I have been respectful to you from the beginning, Rhonda said, trying to keep her voice calm and steady. No, you have not, Marcus snapped. You have been argumentative and difficult. You have questioned my authority. You have lied to me repeatedly. Marcus began pacing back and forth in front of Rhonda like an angry teacher lecturing a student. Do you know what happens to people who do not cooperate with police officers? Do you know how bad I can make your life? Rhonda did not answer, which seemed to make Marcus even angrier. I can arrest you right now for resisting arrest. I can say you threatened me. I can say you tried to run. Who do you think they are going to believe, you or a police officer? Marcus stopped pacing and stared directly at Rhonda. I can make up any story I want, and there is nothing you can do about it. It will be my word against yours, and my word carries a lot more weight. Rhonda felt a cold fear settling in her stomach. She was starting to understand that this officer might be willing to lie in his police report to cover up his behavior. Unless, Marcus said, his voice taking on that fake friendly tone again, unless we can come to some kind of understanding. What kind of understanding? Rhonda asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. Marcus smiled again. You could apologize for lying to me. You could admit that you do not belong in this neighborhood, and you could show me how sorry you are. The way he said show me made Rhonda's skin crawl. She was a trained fighter who could defend herself against almost anyone, but the handcuffs made her helpless, and even if she could fight back, she knew that attacking a police officer would destroy her life. I am not going to apologize for telling the truth, Rhonda said quietly but firmly. Marcus's face turned red with anger. You just do not get it, do you? You think you are special? You think the rules do not apply to you? He leaned in close to her ear. Let me explain something to you. I can ruin your life tonight. I can arrest you, and even if the charges do not stick, you will have spent the night in jail. You will have an arrest record. Your picture will be in the newspaper. Marcus straightened up and looked pleased with himself. Or you can be smart about this. You can cooperate with me and this whole thing goes away. No one ever has to know it happened. Rhonda closed her eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. She thought about all the young girls who looked up to her as a role model. She thought about her career and her family. But most of all, she thought about doing what was right. When she opened her eyes, her voice was steady and strong. Officer Henderson, what you are suggesting is wrong, and I am not going to cooperate with it. Marcus's face darkened with rage. He was not used to being told no, especially by someone he saw as powerless. In his mind, Rhonda was making a big mistake that she was going to regret. Marcus stared at Rhonda with pure anger in his eyes. No one had ever refused his demands like this before. In his short time as a police officer, he had gotten used to people doing whatever he told them to do. Rhonda's refusal to cooperate made him feel like his authority was being challenged. You are making a big mistake, Marcus said through gritted teeth. A really big mistake. Rhonda looked straight back at him. Despite being handcuffed and helpless, something had changed in her attitude. The fear was still there, but it was being replaced by a quiet confidence that Marcus did not understand. Officer Henderson, Rhonda said in a calm, steady voice. I think you are the one making the mistake. Marcus laughed bitterly. Oh, really? And why is that? Because you think someone is going to believe your word over mine? Because you have no idea who you are talking to, Rhonda replied. Something in her tone made Marcus pause for a moment. For the first time since he had pulled her over, Rhonda sounded completely confident instead of nervous or scared. What is that supposed to mean? Marcus asked. Rhonda looked at him for a long moment before answering. It means that you made a lot of assumptions about me based on what I look like and what kind of car I drive. And every single one of those assumptions was wrong. Marcus felt a tiny flicker of uncertainty, but he pushed it away. You are just trying to scare me now. It is not going to work. I am not trying to scare you, Rhonda said. I am trying to give you a chance to end this before you do something that ruins your career. My career? Marcus laughed. Lady, you are the one who needs to worry about your future, not me. Rhonda took a deep breath. She had been hoping to avoid this moment, but she could see that Officer Henderson was not going to listen to reason. She was going to have to tell him who she really was. Officer Henderson, my name is Ronda Rousey. I am the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion of the world. Marcus stared at her for a moment, then burst out laughing. Right, and I am Superman. Do you really think I am going to fall for something that stupid? I am telling you the truth, Rhonda said calmly. You expect me to believe that you are some famous fighter? You? Marcus looked her up and down dismissively. You are just a woman in gym clothes driving an old car. You are nobody special. Rhonda felt a flash of anger at his dismissive tone, but she kept her voice controlled. I am exactly who I said I am, and you are about to find out how big a mistake you have made. Marcus was getting tired of what he saw as Rhonda's games. Look, I do not know what you are trying to pull here, but it is not going to work. You can pretend to be whoever you want, but you are still just another criminal I caught in the wrong neighborhood. I am not a criminal, Rhonda said firmly. I am a professional athlete. I have an Olympic medal. I have been on television hundreds of times. I am exactly who I said I was from the beginning. Marcus shook his head. You know, the more you lie, the worse this is going to be for you. I might have been willing to go easy on you before, but now you are just making me angry. Rhonda could see that Officer Henderson was not going to believe her no matter what she said. His mind was completely closed to the possibility that he might be wrong about her. When I told you I was a fighter, you laughed. Rhonda continued. When I told you I lived in this neighborhood, you did not believe me. When I told you I was an athlete, you made jokes. You decided I was lying before you even talked to me. Marcus felt uncomfortable with how accurately Rhonda was describing his behavior, but he was not ready to admit he might have been wrong. I made those decisions based on the evidence, Marcus said defensively. People who belong in this neighborhood do not drive cars like yours. People who belong in this neighborhood include people of all different backgrounds and income levels, Rhonda replied. Just because someone does not look the way you expect them to look does not mean they do not belong. Marcus was getting frustrated with the conversation. In his mind, Rhonda was trying to make him feel bad for doing his job. He decided to end the discussion and arrest her. That is enough, Marcus said. You are under arrest for suspicious activity and lying to a police officer. Those are not real crimes, Rhonda said. They are crimes when I say they are crimes, Marcus replied. As Marcus reached for his radio to call for backup, Rhonda looked directly at him. Officer Henderson, before you make that call, I want you to think very carefully about what you are doing. I know exactly what I am doing, Marcus said. I am arresting a criminal. You are about to arrest one of the most famous athletes in the world for no reason at all, Rhonda said. Do you really think that is going to end well for you? Marcus hesitated for just a moment. Something in Rhonda's voice was making him second-guess himself, but he was too proud and too stubborn to back down now. Nice try, Marcus said, but your little act is not going to save you. He lifted his radio to his mouth, ready to call for a patrol car to take Rhonda to jail. He had no idea that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his short career as a police officer. But just as he was about to speak into the radio, he saw headlights approaching from down the street. Another police car was coming their way, probably just doing a routine patrol of the neighborhood. Marcus smiled. This was perfect timing. He would have a witness to see him make his big arrest. This was exactly the kind of thing that would impress his supervisors and help him advance in his career. He had no idea that the police car approaching them was about to change everything. The police car pulled up behind Marcus's patrol vehicle, and Marcus felt excited. Finally, he would have another officer there to see him make what he was sure would be an important arrest. He straightened his uniform and put on his most professional expression. The door of the second police car opened, and Sergeant Patricia Williams stepped out. She was a 15-year veteran of the police force and one of the most respected officers in the department. Marcus had only met her a few times, but he knew she had a reputation for being fair, smart, and tough. Sergeant Williams was in her early 40s, with short brown hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She had seen a lot during her years as a police officer, and she had a good sense for when something was not right. As she walked toward Marcus and Rhonda, she could immediately tell that the situation was tense. "What do we have here, Officer Henderson?" Sergeant Williams asked as she approached. Marcus puffed up with pride. This was his chance to show a senior officer how good he was at his job. "I pulled over this vehicle for suspicious activity. The suspect has been lying to me and acting uncooperative. I was just about to arrest her." Sergeant Williams looked at Rhonda, who was still handcuffed and leaning against her car. Something about the woman seemed familiar, but Williams could not quite place where she had seen her before. "What kind of suspicious activity?" Williams asked. "Driving through this neighborhood in an old car at night," Marcus explained. "She claims she lives here, but I do not believe her story. She also claims to be some kind of professional fighter, which is obviously not true." Williams frowned. The reasons Marcus was giving did not sound like real crimes to her. "Has she committed any actual violations?" Marcus felt defensive. "She has been lying to me from the beginning. She is clearly up to no good." Williams walked closer to Rhonda to get a better look at her. As she got nearer, something clicked in her memory. The facial features, the athletic build, even the way the woman carried herself despite being handcuffed. It all seemed very familiar. "Ma'am, what is your name?" Williams asked Rhonda directly. "Ronda Rousey," Rhonda answered, looking relieved to finally be talking to an officer who seemed more professional than Henderson. Williams felt her heart skip a beat. She looked more closely at Rhonda's face, and suddenly, she knew exactly who she was looking at. This was not just any professional fighter. This was one of the most famous athletes in the world. "Oh my God," Williams said quietly, her voice filled with shock and recognition. Marcus looked confused. "What is wrong, Sergeant?" Williams could not believe what she was seeing. She had watched Rhonda fight on television many times. She had even taken her teenage daughter to see one of Rhonda's fights at a local sports bar, and now here was her hero handcuffed on the side of the road for no good reason. "Officer Henderson," Williams said slowly, "do you have any idea who this is?" Marcus looked back and forth between Williams and Rhonda, not understanding why the sergeant seemed so shocked. "She is just some woman I caught acting suspicious. She has been lying about being a fighter." Williams walked up to Rhonda with a look of deep embarrassment on her face. "Ms. Rousey, I'm so sorry about this. Are you hurt? Have you been treated properly?" Marcus felt confused and a little scared by the sudden change in Williams' attitude. "Sergeant, what is going on?" Williams turned to face Marcus with an expression of disbelief and anger. "What is going on, Officer Henderson, is that you have just spent the last half hour harassing one of the most famous athletes in the world." "What?" Marcus said, feeling like his world was starting to collapse. "This is Ronda Rousey," Williams explained, her voice getting louder with each word. "She is the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. She is an Olympic bronze medalist. She has been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She has been in movies. She is one of the most recognizable people in sports." Marcus stared at Rhonda with his mouth hanging open. His confident smile had completely disappeared. That cannot be true." "It is absolutely true," Williams said firmly. "And you have been treating her like a criminal for no reason at all." Williams immediately moved to remove the handcuffs from Rhonda's wrists. "I am so sorry, Ms. Rousey, this should never have happened." As the handcuffs came off, Rhonda rubbed her wrists where the metal had been cutting into her skin. She could see the color draining from Officer Henderson's face as he began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. "Ms. Rousey," Williams continued, "I need to know exactly what happened here. Did Officer Henderson follow proper procedure?" Rhonda looked at Marcus, who now looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Despite everything he had put her through, she felt a little sorry for him. But she also knew that his behavior had been completely unacceptable. "Sergeant Williams," Rhonda said, "Officer Henderson pulled me over without cause, handcuffed me without reason, and made several inappropriate suggestions about how I could avoid being arrested." Williams felt her anger rising as she listened to Rhonda's account. She turned to look at Marcus, who was now sweating despite the cool night air. "Officer Henderson," Williams said in a voice that could cut through steel, "you need to explain yourself right now." Marcus tried to speak, but no words came out. His mind was racing as he tried to process what was happening. He had gone from feeling like a successful police officer to feeling like his career was over in a matter of seconds. I did not know," Marcus finally managed to say. "You did not know what?" Williams demanded. "You did not know that you should not harass innocent people? You did not know that you should not make inappropriate suggestions to women? You did not know that you should treat all citizens with respect regardless of what they look like?" Marcus realized that saying he did not know who Ronda was would not save him. His behavior had been wrong regardless of whether she was famous or not. Williams turned back to Ronda with a look of deep respect and concern. "Ms. Rousey, I want you to know that Officer Henderson's behavior does not represent this police department. We will handle this situation appropriately." Ronda nodded, feeling relieved that finally someone in authority was taking her seriously. She looked at Marcus, who appeared to be in complete shock, and wondered if he was finally understanding how wrong he had been. Marcus stood frozen in place, watching his career crumble before his eyes. The confidence and arrogance he had felt just minutes before had been replaced by complete terror. He kept looking back and forth between Sergeant Williams and Ronda, hoping that somehow this was all a big misunderstanding. "Sergeant," Marcus said in a shaky voice, "I was just doing my job." "I thought she was acting suspicious." Williams stared at him with disgust. "Your job is to protect and serve the community, not to harass innocent people based on what kind of car they drive. Your job is to treat all citizens with respect, not to make inappropriate suggestions to women." Ronda was massaging her wrists where the handcuffs had left red marks. She looked at Marcus with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "Officer Henderson, you never asked for my identification when you first stopped me. You never actually listened to anything I told you. You decided I was guilty before you even talked to me." Marcus knew she was right, but he was too scared to admit it. I was trying to keep the neighborhood safe." "Safe from what?" Williams demanded. "Safe from a woman driving home from the gym? Safe from someone who lives in the area and pays taxes like everyone else?" Williams walked over to Marcus and stood directly in front of him. "Officer Henderson, you are going to return Ms. Rousey's license and registration immediately. Then you are going to apologize to her. Then you are going to get in your car and drive straight back to the station." Marcus fumbled in his pocket for Ronda's documents. His hands were shaking as he handed them back to her. "Ms. Rousey, I am sorry. I did not know who you were." Ronda looked at him sadly. "Officer Henderson, that is exactly the problem. You should treat everyone with respect, not just people you recognize. What you did to me tonight, you probably do to other people who are not famous enough to have Sergeant Williams recognize them." Marcus felt sick to his stomach as he realized how true her words were. He thought about all the other times he had made assumptions about people based on their appearance or their car or their neighborhood. How many other innocent people had he harassed? Williams had taken out her notebook and was writing down everything that had happened. "Ms. Rousey, I need to get a complete statement from you about Officer Henderson's conduct. This will be part of an official investigation." Ronda nodded. "I want to make sure this does not happen to anyone else." Williams looked at Marcus with contempt. "Officer Henderson, you are suspended pending a full investigation into your conduct tonight. You will report to Internal Affairs first thing tomorrow morning." Marcus felt like he was going to be sick. "Sergeant, please. I made a mistake, but I can learn from this. I do not want to lose my job. You should have thought about that before you decided to abuse your authority," Williams replied coldly. Over the next few hours, Williams took a detailed statement from Ronda about everything that had happened. Ronda described how Marcus had pulled her over without cause, handcuffed her without reason, and made inappropriate suggestions about how she could avoid being arrested. Williams also interviewed Marcus, who finally admitted that he had made assumptions about Ronda based on her appearance and her car. He confessed that he had no real reason to pull her over and that his behavior had been unprofessional. Within a week, the story had spread throughout the police department. Marcus became known as the officer who had harassed a world champion fighter because he thought she did not belong in a nice neighborhood. Other officers shook their heads in disbelief at his stupidity and arrogance. The police department's Internal Affairs Division conducted a thorough investigation. They found that Marcus had violated multiple department policies regarding proper conduct, probable cause, and treatment of citizens. They also discovered that this was not the first time Marcus had made questionable stops, based on his personal biases. Marcus was fired from the police force. He tried to appeal the decision, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. His dream of being a police officer was over before it had really begun. Ronda decided to speak publicly about what had happened to her. She gave interviews to several news outlets explaining how she had been treated by Officer Henderson. She emphasized that the problem was not just about her being famous, but about how police officers sometimes treat people based on assumptions and prejudices. "What happened to me happens to regular people all the time," Ronda said in one interview. "The only difference is that when it happens to me, people pay attention because I am famous. But everyone deserves to be treated with respect by police officers regardless of what they look like or what kind of car they drive." The story became national news. People were shocked that a police officer could be so ignorant that he did not recognize one of the most famous athletes in the world. But more importantly, many people began discussing the larger issues of police misconduct and racial profiling. Sergeant Williams was promoted to lieutenant partly because of how professionally she had handled the situation with Ronda. She became a spokesperson for police reform within her department, advocating for better training on bias and cultural sensitivity. Ronda used the incident as motivation for her advocacy work. She began speaking at police academies about the importance of treating all citizens fairly. She also worked with civil rights organizations to promote police accountability and reform. The incident changed Ronda's perspective on her fame and platform. She realized that her celebrity status gave her a unique opportunity to speak out about injustice and to demand better treatment for all people, not just famous ones. Marcus eventually found work as a security guard at a shopping mall. He never fully understood how his prejudices and abuse of power had led to his downfall. He continued to blame others for his problems rather than taking responsibility for his actions. The neighborhood where the incident occurred became more aware of issues around policing and justice. Many residents began paying closer attention to how police officers treated different members of their community. Ronda continued her fighting career, but she never forgot the night when a police officer taught her an important lesson about using her platform to fight for justice outside the ring, as well as inside it.